The US Treasury Department, an unlikely mediator in a decades-long conflict in a region thousands of miles away. A new party attempting to resolve the dispute over a multi-billion-dollar water project being developed on the Nile River as it flows through Ethiopia. Neighbors Egypt and Sudan have been deeply concerned at the consequent impact on their own water supplies. This round of negotiation flowing from a meeting between US President Donald Trump and his Egyptian counterpart, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, at which the US leader was asked for help in resolving the bitter dispute between the countries. And this week the two presidents held a follow-up phone call, after which the White House released this statement. President Trump expressed support for Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan's ongoing negotiations to reach a collaborative agreement on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The waters of the Nile have long been a source of conflict. In 1821, Egypt invaded Sudan to protect its water supply. Half a century later, it occupied Ethiopia. A series of agreements in the 20th century prevented further major conflict, including the Nile Waters Agreement in 1959, in which Egypt and Sudan agreed as to how much each state could take from the Nile every year. But the struggle was again intensified when in 2010, at the height of the Arab Spring, Ethiopia announced the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam project. The dam is 70% complete, and the argument is now centered not on construction, but on how much water will be diverted to fill the dam.
I hope that diplomatic efforts would lead to some flexibility from the Ethiopian side, because Egypt is not asking to stop the dam's construction, but rather to slow down its construction, which might be too late now because it is believed that a major part of the dam is already constructed. But we could think about the way the dam will be operated and how the lake will be filled.
Last month, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in ending the war with Eritrea. A few weeks later, he told his parliament Ethiopia could mobilize millions in a conflict with Egypt, but insisted only negotiation could break the deadlock. The DC talks are a major breakthrough because in the past, Ethiopia had vigorously opposed calls by Egypt and Sudan for third-party mediation. President Trump has assigned his Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, to host the talks, an apparently curious decision to bypass State Department, which would traditionally handle such negotiations. But the inclusion at the meeting of World Bank President David Malpass, a clear signal that the Trump administration sees economic leverage, not diplomatic talk, as the key to agreement. Mike Hanna, Aljazeera, Washington.